Thanks for watching this video on the new Bizstats broker dashboard. Today we're going to run through how to create a report, the new visuals, new exports, how to save searches, and how to submit data through the Bizstats platform. So first of all, you'll notice there's quite a difference in the look and feel of the dashboard. We've changed a bit of the UI, so it's very clear now that if you have your broker access activated through this different colorway, if you don't have this, and it's a more of a blue color like this, then get hold of us at Bizstats and we'll make sure that your broker access is turned on in the back end. So we no longer have the Power BI platform running in the background. Everything's done directly through Bizstats. So to create a report, you actually do that within the platform. We don't take you out to Power BI to do that. So let's run through creating a report. First, we start off by clicking the Create a Report button. And this is going to load up the entire instance of the database in the background for you to search through. So we're going to give it a reference name. So for example, we're just going to go Maps Cafe. It has annual revenues of, we're just going to use nice round numbers here, 1 million. Gross profit is 20%. Sales discretionary is 150. Intangible assets 20,000, and we have stock of 10,000. We can enter a short description here just to give some context if we're coming back to it later. Then we go next, and then we're searching through our ANZSIC system. So this is a little bit different from the old Power BI dashboard, but it's the same sort of concept. So we're working through the layers of ANZSIC here. So there's two different ways you can do it. So for instance, if I'm looking for a cafe and I'm not sure where I'm going, I might say, okay, accommodation and food services, that looks about right. And then I'm looking in the sector, food and beverage. And then here, it seems to be the right one, cafes, restaurants, and takeaway food services. So now it gives me the different options that I have available. So you can see here, cafes and restaurants seems like the one I need. There's 2,741 records in that category. So I'm going to select that category. You can see it shows up here in my right-hand sidebar. If I add multiple, it just adds up the number of records that I'm going to be searching. But in this case, we're just going to stick with cafes. The other option we have, if we remove this and start again, is to just search in the search bar. So anything that might show up in the description of the cafe could show up and could be used to show the result here. So if I type cafe and hit enter, and then I can start, okay, there's going to be a number of different records that might have a cafe. So for instance, other grocery wholesaling could be that one record says it supplies to cafes. So it's not as obviously as accurate, but you can see we do get down to the one that we want, which is cafes and restaurants. So it's just about working through those two different methods and seeing which one works best in your instance. So we're going to roll with this one, cafes and restaurants, and we're going to go next. And now we're into looking at the individual records that we have available. What we can do, because there's 2,700 records in here, we can actually start to filter down these records. So our record had 1 million in revenue, so maybe we'll just go between 750 and 2.5. And I think we had 150k of SDE. So we've got plenty of records to work with here in this category, so we can be quite narrow in our search. And we might even make it quite recent. Let's just go in the last 5 years. What we can then also do is we can narrow it down even further by filtering on the description. So if I just want cafes, because this ANZSIC has cafes and restaurants, I might want to eliminate any restaurants by just typing in cafe. And then I can work through and I can see, okay, I've got 22 results to choose from here. They're going to be a close match to my target. I'm not going to go through it in this one, but I'm just going to pick 5 here. You can see they show up here, and again in my right-hand sidebar, I can remove them from here. I can always remove them from here. I'm just building up a sample with which to work with for my report. So I'm happy with that sample. I'm going to push that through into the preview stage. So now that I've got a preview, I can actually see all of the details in the report. And in this instance, I might think there's some that aren't relevant once I see all the information. And so again, I can remove those from the report by just clicking them out here. At this point, or at any point in your search, you can save your search. So we'll go through an example of how to save the search. So if I click Save Search, and then I go Matt's Cafe, it's going to save it into my dashboard so that I can come back to it later. This is handy if you're going away from your computer. It means you don't need to come back and re-enter all of the business details, go through that search process all over again. So here I am, Save Search, there's Matt's Cafe. You can have as many saved searches as you like. You can also delete out your saved searches if you no longer need them. If I go into Matt's Cafe, it's going to take me back to the stat selection that I had at the time of saving the report. So there's my 4 that I had. I'm going to add this one back in and go next. I've checked that I'm happy with the preview and I'm going to create the report. So there's our result in our report. What you'll notice first up is quite a different sort of look and feel. We now have this implied values range, which is just a visual representation of the values and the figures that we've provided. So we'll come back to that. The other features that you have up here to keep in mind is that you can change the name at any time, and you can come back and forward and do that whenever you like. So the core information that we have available are these 4 tables. We have implied values, sample, ANZSIC, and comparison. So the sample is the 5 records that we chose in building our report. Now, again, even if we've added them to our report, we can still remove them after the fact by unclicking them here. So if we add them to our report and then we decide, actually, it's not really relevant, then we can come back and we can take that out. It might be that we want to show our clients that result and have a justification for why it wasn't relevant to their business. So that's something that you can do. So to flesh out the implied value range and how we calculate that, it's good to look at the sample. So this sample, five businesses, gives us an SDE multiple of 2.19 and an intangibles multiple of 1.34. Now it's probably relevant to come back here. So you'll see the 2.19 SDE multiple and the 1.34 intangibles. Now what we've done is we've utilized the information that we've been given in the business details to produce this value range. So 150K at 2.19 gives us the 328K of this SDX value, and the 1.34 times this SDE plus your tangibles and your stock gives us the 230 implied value range. So there we have the 230, the 328. The sample average is the average sales price of these businesses here, 336. So you've got a sort of visual representation of exactly how your target business compares to the sample and the ANZSIC and where it measures on these two calculations. You can come back at any time and you can change these values. So say actually 160 and apply that, and it's changed those valuations. You can see now our ranges for high end is above the sample average, and we've brought both measures up. So you can change those at any time. Here we have the ANZSIC, and now these values are actually no longer the average or the mean. We've changed our methodology to be more aligned with international best practice, and we now show for each data field, we're showing the median value. So if you're comparing back to old reports and you realize there's a difference, it's because the old reports were referring to the average, whereas we now, in the new version, refer to the median. The last table on here is the comparison table, which just goes through each of these key values, our implied values under the 2 measures, our sample average, and our ANZSIC value, and gives you a sort of way to compare between all of these measures. If you had more than one ANZSIC, you would have more rows in this table. So now that you're comfortable with what's shown in the report, we can look at the two options for exporting. So we have both a PDF and an Excel export option. So Excel exports just like this. What you're going to get is 4 tabs, the same as what's shown in the report on the web app. You can see we have our implied value, sample, ANZSIC and comparison tables all there. Now, the other thing to note here is if you're looking for the detail, the Excel download actually has the description field in it, which we've never had in the reports in the past because of limitations on page size. The Excel export now has that. To go back to the PDF, now we've added some smarts in here, which allows you to build up your report how you prefer. So you can tick on and off which sort of pages you want to show if the implied value range chart is irrelevant to your specific target business that you're appraising, and you don't need to include that. I'm going to download the full report here. So it gives you this nice presentable document, which gives you a cover page with Bizstats logo. It helps keep it clear that the data is independent. We have an implied value page, which gives you a sort of overview of what we're doing in this page, and then the values. It also has our sample value, the different business sales that we included in this report, ANZSIC median, the comparison table, glossary of terms for those who aren't familiar with the terms that we use in Bizstats, very helpful, and then also our standard disclaimer. So the idea for that is it can be included in the back of an appraisal quite nicely. So now that's about it for creating and exporting a report. Now, if we go back, we can take a look at, you can see that our cafe report is now saved in our dashboard, so we can come back anytime and revisit that report and export and do what we need to do. We've also got our saved searches here, a search that we saved before is still there, in which case we can delete it out because we have created the report and we no longer need the save report. That's about it for creating a report. The other things that are available on the site through here is your data submissions. So you can make your data submission directly from the report here. That's our standard form. You can also send us an email directly through this channel. And then the only other thing is to log out. Again, if you have any questions or queries about how to use it or would like some training set up for your team, feel free to get in touch and we can set that up. Thanks for watching. We really hope that this new version of Bizstats helps you to access the Bizstats data more easily, and we appreciate your support.